Thank you.
Yay! All right.
All right.
Well, I want to introduce, I am Emily Stark, the director for the Miss Colorado for America and the Miss Colorado. And so today we thought we would just kind of catch up and kind of see what's going on with our Miss Colorado for America, Juliet Abdel, and see what she's up to. And since we have not done one of these previously, let's start with just an introduction on who are you?
Sure. Yes. So I am Juliet Abdel, Miss Colorado for America 2020, and I reside here in Westminster, Colorado. Been a resident for nearly 4 years now, and I love it. Wouldn't trade it for the world. But I'm the youngest of 6. I'm actually, even though I'm the youngest of 6, I'm the only caregiver that's in my family. I don't know how that transpired. So a lot of the work that I do centers around self-care advocacy and efforts to really prioritize yourself, your health, and your wellness so that you can help others and make sure that you heal along the way.
So why is that important to you?
Yeah. So about a year ago, a little over a year ago now, actually, about a year and a half, I had come back from getting my 40 Under 40 award. I was super stoked and had a migraine that just wouldn't go away for about 2 weeks. And after a while, and of incessant people at work telling me I needed to go into doctor's offices, I finally did. 3 doctors later and several prescriptions and shots later, they told me that I'd had an aneurysm. And at 29, suffering an aneurysm definitely wasn't on my to-do list. It wasn't something that I just wanted to cross off one day off my bucket list. So it was, I think, God's way of really shaking me and giving me a wake-up call to prioritize myself and to really take a second and be mindful of where I was at in life. I was at the time, I've been taking care of my mom. She's been living with me, and between her and work and moving from a very toxic environment that I was in, it ended up being my mind could handle it. My body definitely could not.
And sometimes we have to slow our mind to catch up with the body. And I think that's where the mirroring of those two together is what you've been advocating pretty much, is to keep those aligned so it all works together well.
Yes. Yeah. And especially now, what I'm really focused on doing is trying to show others that, self-care isn't just treating yourself by getting your nails done and your hair. I mean, that's great. And I do all that stuff for sure. So shout out to DJ and Carrie for making me look great. But everything else, it's very holistic, right? So it's the social components, your spirituality, your emotional, your mental health, and your physical. And so a lot of what I'm doing now is focused on educating women nationwide on things that they can do in their daily life that don't require a whole lot of time. They don't require money, but it's just small things that you can start engaging in that really keep your overall health and wellness as best as possible.
So let's talk about that, because I know you have a team and they're all doing different things. Tell us more on what you're doing, because it's exciting.
Yes. So I'm going to move back a little bit. With COVID, believe it or not, COVID was a blessing because I turned around and published a book during that time. I produced my coffee table book, and an idea is an idea until you really put it into practice. So had the pageant not been postponed a little bit and given me time to think about what I wanted to do and put pen to paper, then I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So I published that book, which was full of the tips and everything that I did to overcome my aneurysm. Fell into an element of self-care. So I put that into a coffee table read that's super easy to read, that's available on Amazon. And then what I do now is I have a self-care squad that's nationwide, and they challenge themselves every week with a different goal. And through doing that goal, they have mentees with them. They're taking videos or photos. They're posting that so others can see and be inspired to do the same. But it's things like, what is your favorite smell that reminds you of that cruise that you went on or that vacation that you had? It could be a scented candle, it could be an air diffuser. What's a song that you like playing that reminds you of that time when you used to play in the gardens, with your mom or your kids or your friends. So it's those different things that I try and infuse into their lives. And we've been doing it for about 10 weeks now. We actually started it after Self-Care Month in September and are on all sides of the U.S. So we have women that are on the East Coast, Southeast, South, and then the West Coast and Midwest.
So cool. Well, congratulations on not letting the COVID stop you from moving forward, because I think it's paralyzed a lot of people. And I think for you, you just kind of turned left and kept going down the path of what do I do now with this extra time and how do I utilize it? So what on earth made you decide to sign up for the pageant in the first?
So this is a great question. And it's, everyone always asks me, have you been doing pageants all your life? And, my mom has been very determined on self-confidence and raising your self-esteem and knowing yourself inside and externally. So she always had us plugged into things very early on. And then it was kind of by no choice. You were so young, you didn't have a say in it. And then she pulled that back when we got to elementary and middle school. And then I hadn't competed in probably over a decade. But I saw about the pageant and I saw about the unmarried division right around, it was that spring before my aneurysm. And whenever that happened, I was like, oh, well, this is the third time that the talk of pageant had come up. I'd had somebody kind of share that I had been in a pageant before at a meeting that I'd had, and then I had interfaced with a few women from the past, and Mrs. Colorado, Mrs. Wyoming. And I was like, oh, the terrific human beings. They're doing so much great work in their community. And then the third component was me running into this newer division that had just been created for unmarried women, single, divorced, widowed, kind of our new season in life. So I was like, well, maybe this is a sign, let me think about it. And then I just kind of let it go by the wayside. I didn't really do anything after that. I had shockingly, right? I carried on with life, or really let life happen to me at that point. And then it wasn't until I was feeling unwell, and I thought it was a couple of days, honestly. I was like, oh, maybe I was just down 2 days where I felt like my life was about to end and my chihuahua was going to eat my face off, all of this negative thoughts, right? And when I put it out into a timeline, it was actually a good 2 months. And believe it or not, the very second that I had my migraine and everything, I had a phone call with you. I had scheduled a call so I could talk to you about stuff, and you were answering my things. I was writing them all down. And then probably that evening was when I went to the hospital and then had my aneurysm. So it's kind of, I always say, whether it's the universe, whether you believe in God, there are reasons why things come into your life when they do. And that realization that kind of sparked in me 2 months later, which felt like only 2 days, was that I wasn't, dead. Here I was, like I was still here. And so now that I am, what are you so fearful of not doing that you were so worried, you did not have a chance to do? So do that. And so for me, that was leaving something behind that was bigger than me, past just work that I was doing, something that lives in other people.
That's huge. So what was the most surprising part about participating in the pageant for you?
I will tell you this random factoid. I don't know how to swim, and I've never worn a swimsuit ever. Yes, I've worn the top, and that was it. And for me, it was, how am I going to do, wear this and then go out and feel comfortable? So after my aneurysm, I had changed things up before I even applied to the pageant. It took me about 2 months, right? So I had gone and see a physical trainer, and they told me, you are pretty much over 40% of you is body fat, which for somebody that's like me, it's like, where is it, right? And so it was a lot of, here I was eating and drinking, coffee and stuff that wasn't good for me. So the point is, I was getting fit. So I knew my physique was going to look fine, but it was this mental, how am I going to present myself in the best way that people can focus on that physique and the hard work that I put into that. So there was a little bit of that I was worried about, because I hadn't ever worn it and gone out in front of other people. But past that, there's the unknowns of COVID and the changes, and you had done a terrific job along the way with, keeping us engaged, keeping us active, and motivating us, asking us questions. But it almost was a nice goal that kept moving, right? So I kept along the way, even through the negative, I was still thinking about this. And so I was working to eat better, to sleep better, to train better, and be the best version of me, even if it was months further from where it was supposed to be.
Which I think is nice,
Mm-hmm.
only in that oftentimes a lot of people, when they're under stress, we eat. You just kind of do that subconscious eating. And at least this kind of kept everybody in check that, wait a minute, we may not be able to go out and do things, but I can't sit home and just let everything fall apart either. So kind of a nice balance. So tell me, what are you working on besides the self-care? Because I know you're just a busy woman. So what else are you working on in the month of December using your title? Because we're headed out to the Miss for America pageant in January. So prepping for that for sure. But what else are you working on this month?
Yes, so great question. It does feel like it's been one thing after another. So I did just finish a clothing drive for a Precious Child, which is a nonprofit up in our area. They service the 160,000 children that are in need across the state. So we were able to collect clothing, coats, and items for their homes, whether it's dishware, kitchenware, and things like that. Has actually been nice to do during this time because you think people won't give as much, but they'll give items, right? Like there's always things that they can give away. So that was really nice to be able to complete. I also was able to partner with Raleigh, which is the Abuse Leadership Network. They are focused on opioid prevention and destigmatization of medications, but how to prevent substance misuse and use, especially during this time. So we just launched that PSA yesterday. We'll post that out, I know, on our Facebook pages and channels for those of you that are interested. And then I'll also have a mental health kind of around the holidays combined with my self-care event. So what I have been doing since my reign is a quarantine time with Miss Colorado across the state. That was kind of my statewide tour. Because of COVID, I'm still going to the areas. I'm just having people tune in virtually. So we had the first one last month as a self-care event. And then this month we'll still have that. It'll just be combined with the mental health component that's there. And then obviously with nationals being around the corner, it's really fine tuning. What do I mentally need to get out the way and done? So that way I can be prepared for it around January. So that and I'm not just scrambling and thinking last minute of everything, and there's always areas of improving, but it's just making sure that you're comfortable with where you're at.
Exactly. That works. So if somebody was somewhat interested in participating in the pageant, what would you tell them to kind of say, hey, give it a whirl? Or like, what would you tell them if they're just sitting on the fence or watching this going, I never thought I would?
I know I think a lot of people think that, and it's like, oh, it's not for me, or I never thought I would, or why should I do it? And I would say the first thing you need to do is give yourself permission to compete. It took me so long to let myself go into the pageant. And I know that if the sooner that you go in, the more helpful Emily is along the way, the more that you start feeling this sense of normalcy and asking questions and understanding it more, as opposed to, pulling the trigger last minute or maybe later on. So I definitely think the sooner the better, but it more than anything, who you have to convince is yourself. For me, I was thinking about all this external, how am I going to take this on? But I'm outwardly doing all this other things for work and all of that. And so I had to kind of sit down and think of, I only schedule my priorities. And would this be one of those? And once I decided that and fully said yes, that's when I went into it. So you have to be in a place that you can really trust yourself to do something you want to do, and not think about all the reasons why you can't do it. Because at the end of the day, this isn't something that they're looking for, who out of the many, they're looking for who is comfortable with bringing who they are forward. And is that person ready to embrace everything that's going to be thrown at them, right? And everybody comes from different walks of life. Everyone has different stories. And how are you using that to be able to shape another person's life?
And that's key. That's the key piece of, especially in this time frame when everyone is dealing with so many unique circumstances, is how can you be a blessing to somebody else? And sometimes that somebody else is yourself. Because as you know, you can't help others if you're not whole, or if it's not all functioning correctly, you can't help others. And so you need to get all these things lined up. All right. So tell me, is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
Yes, I would tell, and this, you have no idea I'm going to say this, but I'm not being paid or pushed to say this, but Emily really is the best person that I've met through this. And I've met a lot of past title holders. I've met other people that have been competing in this, others that I've inspired to kind of think about it. But honestly, I am blessed with your friendship and your dedication to the system. And it makes you feel like you are part of it. And that's, I think, anyone that's on the fence behind it and is considering even going into it, there's a lot of value in building a relationship with Emily, and she will have you understand parts of you that you didn't even know, and really admire you for who you are. And sometimes that's just overlooked so often on an everyday continual basis that we just don't take the time to appreciate ourselves and what we can offer. So I think more than anything, it's investing in yourself, it's investing in relationships like the ones that you'll develop with our amazing director. And that if you have any thoughts or questions, please be sure that you call the office, email Emily. I know she actively will check that, or email our pages on Instagram or on Facebook. You know, we regularly reply to them. I won't ignore you if you also send me a message. I'll likely tell you to connect with her, but I do my best in answering the immediate things that I know the answers to.
Oh, thank you. Well, we will check back in, and before you go to the national pageant, of course, I think we're going to check in a handful of times, but I appreciate your time on this Friday, and I will talk to you soon. Actually, I'll see you later on, but
It's so exciting.
But thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will talk to you all soon.
Thank you.